I'm Stratton, and this is my presentation on Reinventing Project-Based Learning, chapters 3, 4, and 5. So, what is project-based learning? Project-based learning is personalized learning. Students learn by doing and doing projects that are relevant to their lives, and PBL has 5 core values: inquiry, research, collaboration, presentation, and reflection. So, chapter 3 goes over imagining the possibilities. How do you create this project based learning for your classroom? Well, first, you mentally pack for the activity beforehand. You think about all the different components of the project, the learning outcomes, what technology, if you use technology, is going to be used, and you baby step your way through the project and making sure that the project is relevant to your class, relevant to what they're learning, and if it's actually worthwhile. And when you brainstorm for this kind of project, you can brainstorm with other teachers. There's tons of online resources, and you can always learn a new trick when getting ready for this project, and you can help the students learn new tricks. Like when we did the Google Earth tour, now I'm just like, oh my gosh, if I'm going to teach about the Crusades or the Silk Road, I can use that tool. Also in chapter 3, it goes over thinking about real world context helps to reveal the interdisciplinary nature of a project. So a student learns about a math problem that can be applied to the science activity that they're going over. Or you could even talk about the water cycle and how certain areas were devastated back in history by droughts. And also, in what ways can projects help students learn about the world and how it works and how they will work in the world? So, school is all about preparing students for the real world. What are they going to be doing in their future jobs? And with projects, it talks about collaborating with others, working with others, and that all happens in real life once they leave school, and that's really important for them to learn. So, when you create a project, keep your students in mind. Take their interest into consideration. Think about what they would like to learn and how they learn. I'm a very visual learner, and going over history, I'm just like, I forgot all of this because I didn't see maps. So, visuals are really important. Figure out what your students need and use that to create your projects. Also, during projects include reflection prompts that encourage the students to think about their grittiness. Grittiness is the ability to sustain interest in and effort towards long-term goals. So I did a picture of hurdles because when I was doing hurdles, I fell a lot, but I got back up and I continued running my race. So when you do projects for students, have built-in stopping points where they can go back and be like, oh yeah, I thought this program was really difficult first and now I'm a pro at it and I can finish my project really fast because I now can do that. And it's good to help their self-esteem. And this top project up here is little baking soda clumps with water, and the activity, you take a squirt bottle with vinegar, and the vinegar squeezes and dissolves the baking soda. I thought of this activity for my preschool students because they love colored water and glitter, and who doesn't like dissolving? And the squeeze bottles with the vinegar was kind of difficult for some of them. They were practicing their fine motor skills, but they got it eventually. They wanted to do it hard enough and they figured it out. So, chapter 3 also goes over essential learning with digital tools and the web. So, there's important research parts, making ideas visual. Students can collect their own data. I did this activity where the students were to go around their houses and make tally marks of how many different colored furniture they have. So, brown couch, white desk, and then at the bottom they color it in on the little graphs over there so they can visually see how much data they collected. And that's important because you can see it and like, oh, okay, yeah, there's like 10 things that are brown. But like, no, there are 10 things that are brown. See all the brown? And then collaboration, project management, support the good project management students. That's really important. They're going to be future bosses someday, and having this practice now is really good. And then also reflection. Students can share their ideas, they can talk about what they went over, and teachers can listen to their reflections and see if the students are struggling in an area and go over certain things. And then there's also supported study. You can go on YouTube and different sites and have free learning resources for the students who need extra help. And plus, YouTube videos are really fun when they're about learning. And then chapter 4 is strategies for discovery. Good projects focus on reaching significant learning outcomes, not just technology. This class is an exception because it's technology class, but certain projects just use the technology as tools to get to the deeper learning. And also to engage the students, the teacher needs to set up the projects where the students believe what they're learning is actually important to them, it's relevant to them. So say if you have a math problem like you need to get to your soccer game and it's an hour away, how fast do you need to drive? And have activities where students want to ask questions, they want to learn more, and they're involved. It's interesting and important to them, so you keep their focus. And then chapter 4, project ideas can come from other teachers. When you're using other teachers' projects, be selective, and those projects may be based on that teacher's classroom or something they've done always. More ideas can come from the students. That's where you get really, really good ideas is from the students. They'll want to focus because their classmate picked the idea. And then the Buck Institute for Education, I put the website down there. They have really good project ideas for you if you're ever um, stuck. And then important features for the projects are multiple different learning paths. Do not have cookie cutter projects that every student's activity is going to be the same. That's not very fun. Have an activity where students can go many different ways. For my second flipped classroom activity, I did Civil War, and for the activity, I split the classroom into two groups, Northerners and Southerners, and they were supposed to discuss who they thought would win the war in a skit. I kind of left it broad. I gave them specific learning outcomes and what I wanted to see, but the outcome was all them. What they produced would be purely based on them and their thinking. And then students learn by doing. You physically do stuff, you move stuff, you see blocks and you add them together and you get the answer that you needed. And then students also learn from each other. Um, you go back to Vygotsky's like zone of learning. Students help each other, and it's really important for them to talk to each other, and that also helps with self-esteem and trust. So when going over projects, there are potential pitfalls. Um, the activities could be really long and there's not really that many outcomes. I think of that as kind of a supply and demand issue. So if it's a really long project, that's supply, and then the outcomes is the demand. So when they're not in balance, it's not good. When there's a lot of learning outcomes, a lot of demand, and it doesn't take that long, then you're good. Or they're balanced. So that's how I kind of see that one. And then losing sight of the learning outcomes. What are they actually learning? Is there so many different pieces of technology overlapping and the concept is kind of lost? And then is the assessment authentic? Is the students being are they being judged on real life situations, or is it just a simple rubric? And then there's too many scripted steps. the outcome will be predictable and you're just stepping each time, and it's not really fun. And then I came up with an activity idea kind of inspired by Survivor that the kids decide to do it, and that could go well or not well, but you kind of want to be prepared for anything that may happen. So, when designing your own project, make a final list of learning objectives for core subjects. Decide on what skills you want them to learn. Is there going to be technology skills? Is it going to not involve technology? Establish evidence of understanding. You want to know that they actually learned something. Plan the project theme or challenge. Projects are really fun with themes like parties, and you want something that the students to go back to and kind of like a starting point, be like, oh, okay, we're really learning about this or something. And then plan how you want to introduce the project to the class. So you kind of want the kids to be excited for the project, so introduce it in a positive way. So I kind of had this little picture for my Civil War project. I just created that thinking about what I would want to learn, and I had specific outcomes, and the evidence was, are they giving me actual facts during these skits? So chapter 5 is about making assessment meaningful. So to assess students' learning, teachers can use summative assessment and a rubric. The summative assessment includes three components: objectives, evidence, activities. So these kind of go hand in hand. You need to have the objectives set up. You need to have evidence to show, like, okay, they actually understand this, and activities. So they all go in a nice big all kind of circle. And you also want to use real world assessments. So, in the real world, when you have a job, you will have annual reviews, and kind of use that to your benefit and use that in your activities as the assessment. And then, when explaining projects, use clear directions. Um, it's really difficult for the students to jump from A to Z, and you can see that in the assessment, and you kind of want to guide them through it well. And then having built-in milestones throughout the activities or timelines is really important as well. So I created this timeline for an imaginary activity. So you introduce the activity, you get the children inspired. It could be due to a lesson that they're going over, and then you also have different components like a wiki activity where the students work together on a wiki. So you want to check that to make sure every child is working on it. And then there's like a presentation, and you want an outline for the presentation. So they're working on, depending on the timeline, you want a completed outline by this date. And then you want to have them like rehearse their presentation. It could be in class or out of class, but you want that a certain day, and then their final presentation. So instead of just having introduce the activity and go straight to the final presentation, you have built-in little checkpoints throughout the way, and that really helps. Even for college, so it works with any age group. And then to build your own rubric for your project from scratch, you create an assessment tool that includes three major categories: knowledge on the lesson, skills that were used, technology or not technology, and then the process that they used. Also, the content of the rubric is weighed more heavily, so you might have more columns in your rubric over here. You might have content and research and have a few more areas to weigh more heavily. But the rubrics, as long as you hold true to the three categories, you should be pretty good. And then this really inspired me. I found this while reading the book, and the fact is that children learn to make decisions by making decisions, not following directions. You want to create activities where the students really learn by doing. and that's what they're going to be doing in the future. So have class reflect the future for them. So thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your summer.